Hi guys, welcome to Binge Watch Britney. So we are continuing with Power Book 2, Ghost Season 3. If you haven't checked out Part 1 yet, go ahead and do so before listening to this episode. And let's go ahead and get started with Part 2. So next we have Monet finally telling the Castillos about Frank. And so this is how Monet gets her revenge against Lorenzo. So we know that back in season 1, we had a guy named Frank who got out of prison and he came immediately to the Tejada family house and he was kind of like just asking questions or whatever, just trying to get back into the family circle or whatever. And so we have everybody from the Tejada family and Tariq trying to figure out how this guy got out of prison so quickly. And Tariq is the one who's like, if you're in prison and you have this long sentence or whatever and you get out early, it's because you're a snitch. And so they end up having Frank killed on Lorenzo's orders. And what happens is that what leads to Monet having this conversation with Evelyn Castillo is that Monet is realizing from like the fingerprint and just side investigation that she's doing into the GCG gang, the person she killed, and Zeke, she realizes that she killed the wrong person. And so she has a conversation with Kane. Kane doesn't rat out his dad. He just kind of talks to her about what happened, but he's also defending his dad. And so he later on has a conversation with his dad, with Lorenzo, and he's trying to get his dad to tell her the truth, but Lorenzo knows that he can't really tell her the truth. She's going to not understand why he did it. And I think that this is very important to highlight because Lorenzo, when he first came home, he wasn't exactly nice to Zeke. Even though she should have known that Zeke was a family friend, a cousin, but he kind of treated him like an outsider. And so you know that he didn't really have love for Zeke. And so for him to be the one to kill Zeke was the worst thing that could have happened in terms of someone killing Zeke and just ruining that connection that Monet had with her firstborn child. So what Monet does at this point is that she goes to the Castillos, I don't want to say, I guess maybe like their restaurant or their front for like their drug business, and she basically reveals to Evelyn that Lorenzo had Frank killed, and this is valuable information for that family because they didn't know who had done it previously. And so for them, this is kind of like a huge betrayal that Lorenzo killed Frank, who basically worked with Lorenzo. And so Monet is kind of like, she's kind of playing up on the fact that she's putting herself at risk by telling Evelyn this, but then she's also playing up the fact that she knows that Evelyn is entitled to retaliate against Lorenzo. And so she's banking on this to be the reason that Lorenzo gets killed. And this also is a way to wash her hands clean of being the person directly responsible for killing Lorenzo as far as being the one to pull the trigger. And so what happens is Evelyn obviously tells her family this, and they have Gordo kill Lorenzo. He kills him outside of a bar, and this is very huge because I didn't talk about this previously so far in this recording. But Gordo and Drew are dating at this point. So they met on an app. They didn't know what each other looked like. And so earlier on when I mentioned that the Tejadas wanted to get the Castillo family to work with them, but they had to eliminate the drug connect. What you see in the episode is that Drew has his phone open on the app and he sees that his match or whatever is getting closer, so that person is actually the one coming up the elevator, and so he's able to figure out that the person that he's connecting with is part of the Castillo family and it's Gordo, and so they're hanging out. And so for Gordo to be the one to kill Lorenzo is bad because obviously Lorenzo is Drew's father, and that's just a whole complicated dynamic, and so we'll see how that turns out later on as well. So next what we have is obviously Lorenzo being killed in the aftermath of that, we have Kane, who is questioning Monet and her involvement because obviously she was asking a bunch of questions about Lorenzo before he was killed, but she lies to him and she denies any involvement. Then we have Lorenzo's repast, and basically we have Kai, who was introduced at the beginning. He was the connect that was in the penthouse with Kane, Drew, and all of them. And so he's being inappropriate. He's clearly hitting on Monet. He's not showing any respect for Lorenzo. The kids are upset by this. And so we have that going on, and Kai is obviously an important figure later on, so we'll talk about that as well. And then we also have Diana. She's still hanging out with that Salim guy, Salim, whatever his name is. He's annoying. She's still hanging out with him. He's at the repast, and he's kind of like I said before, he's kind of very pro-black. He's trying to kind of like better Diana, but he's doing it in a way that's kind of like judgmental and snooty and all of this stuff. And so he just starts talking really crazy about her dad at his repast in their home. And so she ends up kicking him out, and he at first doesn't want to leave, but then she threatens to get her brothers involved, and so he leaves. And so that should obviously be the last of him, but we're going to see more of him later on. And so the repast continues, and so I don't know what leads to this, but I know that Drew is really upset by how Kai is just treating their mother in their family home and all of this stuff, and so he wants to get revenge for his dad. Monet is taking over the family at this point, and she won't let them get revenge. Obviously, it makes sense for her to keep a lid on them trying to get revenge because she knows that she's the one responsible. She doesn't want them to dig into it and find out what's going on. So she's just trying to keep a leash on them and kind of keep control over the family. So next we have Tariq, Effie, and Brayden returning from Italy. And what I didn't cover when I was talking about this situation before is that Tariq ended up cluing Norma in on what was happening. They lured Lombardi to a isolated spot, kind of like in the desert. It wasn't really the mountains. Maybe it was the mountains, but it wasn't like snow. It was just like sand or whatever, dirt, whatever. So they lured them there, and they basically had a shootout, and all of those people were killed. So this elevates the crew in Noma's eyes, and she gives them even more responsibility, which is not what they want. Effie wants to make her money so that she can pay for school. Tariq wants to get his inheritance and take care of his family and get out of the drug game. And so they're just given even more responsibility at this point, and that just keeps them connected to Noma instead of getting them from out under her. So next, what I want to talk about is Tariq, Effie, and Brayden. So obviously we have this tight-knit group. They know each other from OG Power. They're really connected to each other. They kind of know how each other thinks and operates at this point. And so Tariq and Effie, they're together at this point. I mentioned that earlier on in this episode. He really wanted him and Effie to be like his parents, Ghost and Tasha, and so he feels really betrayed at this point to know that she was the one who tried to hurt Lauren. And so Tariq is pissed off at this point. He somehow gets the truth out of Brayden, and Brayden admits that, Effie took her from me, he didn't know what happened, blah, blah, blah. And so Tariq is mad. He cuts Brayden out of the business. Then he takes Effie on this long drive, and where they end up going is the spot that she took Lauren to when she tried to kill her by pushing her into the water. And so they have this long conversation on the drive there. He's telling her about things that he's done as far as the people that he's killed. Effie is stupid, and she doesn't take this clear hint to tell him what she did to Lauren. And so she's just talking about her mother's boyfriend and the rough time that she had growing up as far as stuff that her mother's boyfriend did to her. And obviously this is traumatic and traumatizing stuff that she's sharing, but Tariq doesn't really care because he's so upset about Lauren, and so he doesn't properly acknowledge that, which is kind of disappointing. But I think at the same time we understand that at this point he's really not feeling Effie, and he just wants to make her pay for what she did to Lauren. And so when they get to the spot, Effie realizes what's going on. She tells him like why she killed Lauren and why she tried to kill Lauren and all of this stuff. And so one thing to note is that Tariq never tells Effie that Lauren is still alive, and so she's still thinking that she killed Lauren. And so that's just interesting because we'll see how that plays out later on. And so what Tariq does at this point is he gets all of the information that he wants from Effie, and he ends up leaving her stranded, and he makes her walk home, which is awful because I have no idea how far they are from school, and she doesn't even have a car, and so that's just awful. So then we have Effie, who's vulnerable, and Kane obviously likes Effie, and so he makes the move on her, and that just ends up as a whole crazy situation. And him and Tariq at some point in season 3, they end up getting into a fight over Effie because, and I'm so annoyed at Kane for making this comment, but he was basically like, oh, you made her so thirsty for attention because you rejected her and you just made an easy path for me. And he's just really talking bad about Effie even though he actually likes her. So I'm like, if you like her, why would you speak bad about her to anger somebody else? And so that's just annoying. They get into a fight over her. And then the season progresses, and so Kane, he makes a move on Effie, they hook up, and he throws that kind of like in Tariq's face, and this just creates faction within the group from everything that happened with Lauren. Kane and Tariq are always beefing. Kane is trying to turn Brayden against Tariq, and then because there's so much faction, not all of them are showing up to the meets, and so Obi comes to Tariq and he says, you guys all need to get on the same page. I need to see everyone when we meet up and when we're basically accounting for all the drugs and the money. And so they have to figure out how to get on the same page. And so next what we have is Lorenzo's funeral. So this is very different from the past. This is his actual funeral. They're in a church. They're saying goodbye to his body and all of this stuff. And so what happens is Drew really wanted to retaliate against whoever killed his family. I can't recall how exactly he figured out or was told that it was the Russian, and so he retaliates against the Russian. So they come back and retaliate by shooting up the funeral for Lorenzo, and that didn't turn out well. And so that happens. Then we have Effie, and so we see a few instances of Effie by herself with Kane. And so early in the season, we had Effie and Kane talking about how she wasn't being honest with Tariq, and we see one scene where she prior to Tariq finding out about Lauren, she texts Kane and said, I can't tell him. He's the only one who has my back. This will hurt him. I'm not going to tell him. Please don't say anything. And so she has those moments where we see her kind of like character development and what she's thinking, and we also see her interactions with Kane. And so needs to pay her tuition, and something happens where the drugs are short when Kane gives it to her, so she's not going to make enough money, and she's going to be short on tuition. So she tells Kane this, and he offers to pay it for her, but she's proud and she wants to pay for it herself, and so she declines his offer, and she basically just has to figure out how to come up with the tuition. So she ends up going to the tuition office to meet with somebody to figure out what they can do, and she finds out that it has been paid off. And so obviously Kane really likes her. He paid off her tuition, and she thanks him for having her back. So one of the other really big things that happened in season 3 is that we finally figure out that Western Holdings is a Ponzi scheme. If you don't know what a Ponzi scheme is, it's basically where you take money from one person to pay back another person, and you just basically keep doing that with a bunch of different people. So you're not ever really making money. You're just getting more people to invest into whatever you're doing so that you can pay back money to the people that you already owe. And so Western Holdings is a Ponzi scheme. This is a huge, devastating blow to the Weston family. The Weston family is extremely powerful, so the fact that this is happening is devastating. They're going to lose everything. And so Brayden discovers this because he's going through some reports, and he realizes that whatever they're doing with the money is not what they're actually doing, and he discovers this empty floor or whatever in the building, and he's basically comes into a room where they're shredding all of these documents, and so that's how he's able to figure out that they aren't being honest with what their company is actually doing. So Brayden, I think he confronts Lucas about this, and then we actually find out that Kiki, who Brayden is romantically involved with, she was in on it. And so they kind of portray her role in this as that she didn't really have a choice. She's, from what we can see, the only black person working there, from who they do show us, and that she doesn't really have a high up position, so she may not have really had a choice in how involved she was with this. And so this is very problematic. Besides it being devastating to the Weston family, is that Tariq, Jenkins, and the Tejada family have put their money into Weston Holdings. So all of that money that they put in is lost. And so I think Tariq ends up going to Jenkins, and they basically are forced to sit down with Lucas, and they're like, you need to repay our money. You're giving Tariq's money back. You're giving my money back. And then Braden's like, you're giving the Tejada family their money back as well. And so there's supposed to be this payment plan to pay those three families back for the money that they put into Weston Holdings, and Lucas is kind of forced to agree to this. And so what happens is that Tate is informed of the Ponzi scheme by Tariq, but he was not supposed to tell anybody. And for whatever reason, he tells the SEC, hey, there's something fishy going on with Weston Holdings, look into this. And so the Ponzi scheme is revealed. And so Lucas disappears. He leaves the family holding the bag. So the day that they raid the offices or the building, Lucas isn't there, and he's not answering his phone. Kiki's there. The Braden's dad is there. Nobody can get answers. They don't know what's going on. And so his family is literally left holding the bag. And so by Tate alerting the SEC what was going on, he actually is screwing Tariq, Jenkins, and the Tejada family out of their money because they're not going to get it back now that everything has been revealed. And so Jenkins is obviously pissed with Tariq because Tariq was the one who convinced him to invest with Weston Holdings, but Tariq didn't know that they were dirty. And so this is just something that backfires on Tariq as far as destroying the relationship that he could have used to his advantage in future situations. So then what this leads to is a showdown kind of between Braden and Lucas. So Lucas is threatening to out Braden and Tariq to the cops. Braden wants Lucas to sign a document saying that his family wasn't involved, that they had nothing to do with what was going on, that they didn't know, and he's refusing to do this. And the reason why he's refusing to do this is because he's selfish. He knows that he can get away scot-free with all of this. He can just go to another country and live his life, or he can even stay in the country and live his life and not really be responsible if his brother's family is left holding the bag. And so Braden isn't going to let this fly, and so he ends up killing Lucas. I think he makes him sign the paperwork first and then he kills him. But that was Braden's first body, and it was a family member that he killed. And so I think that must have been a traumatic experience for him because he wasn't willing to kill Lauren before. He wasn't willing to kill the Russian drug dealer, but he finally does kill somebody in defense of his family and trying to protect his friends. So next we have Lauren and Tariq finally working together, and they do so to trick Jenny Sullivan. So I'm not sure what exactly leads to them working together, but the day that Lauren goes to testify, Tariq, I think, basically is able to sneak in. He's talking to her, and he basically gets her to flip on Jenny. Lauren also outs that Sax is dirty, so this gives the crew actual confirmation that they need, or the actual tip that they need, that Sax is dirty. And so the court case is epic because Jenny, she's questioning Lauren. Lauren is supposed to talk bad about Tariq and everybody else who's involved with that drug organization, but instead she actually outs Jenny as being dirty herself and how she manipulated Lauren into basically testifying and being part of this case that she didn't want to be part of. And so this makes Jenny Sullivan look bad. It undermines the RICO case that they're trying to build against all of these people, and that was just one of the more epic scenes in this season. It was very reminiscent of what Braden did in the court case in season 2 when he got Tariq off of the hook. The next thing I want to talk about is Salim. He's super annoying. This probably doesn't even need to be mentioned, but he tried to win Diana back, and he he gets Diana a job at the school bookstore, and so her first day working there, whatever, she sees that Effie and Toby get together. She's annoyed by this, and so she continues to work there because she doesn't want to use drug money to pay for anything, and obviously she probably doesn't make that much money anyway. And I don't know, other than her dad paying her tuition, I think that maybe she's responsible for everything else because she doesn't really have money, it seems, to buy books. So she's interested in Salim and building a relationship with him because he has free books that she can access. And so that's how the relationship builds. And so he tries to win her back. There's like this open mic night, and he either sings or recites a poem or something like that. It's supposed to impress Diana. She ends up walking out. Salim comes after her, and he's kind of upset or whatever that she's not like buying into his romantic gestures or whatever. And so he ends up trying to like threaten her. And this leads to her doing some digging on him, and we'll talk about that later as well. So she's not really buying into his romantic gestures, and this actually backfires on him because he ends up trying to threaten her, and so this leads her to just do some digging, and she finds out his whole backstory. His name is different. He grew up with white parents. He's not really oppressed, and so he's trying to have this this power moment, this pro-black moment, and talking about all of the oppression that he's been through, and you find out that that's not really the case, and so this is kind of like a huge win for Diana, and we finally get rid of this dude. So next we have Monet. Monet is framing a guy named Kai, who we talked about earlier. He was rude at the repast for Lorenzo, and he was also the drug connect at the beginning of season 3. So we have him coming back into the picture. Monet is trying to take advantage of the fact that he likes her, that he wants to make her his girl, whatever. And so she goes to like his club or his place of business, and they're having a conversation. She's trying to get cozy with him, and what she's actually trying to do is frame him for being involved in Lorenzo's murder. So I think Kane and Drew are both there, but they don't really know, but this is happening. So what happens is she's trying to get cheeky with him and plant something on him. He realizes what she's doing, and he tries to attack her. And I think somehow he ends up getting attacked himself or shot or whatever. And this creates a little bit of time for Monet to plant a cell phone, a burner cell phone that she was using to communicate with Gordo on Kai. And so they end up taking the phone from Kai, and I think Drew's the one with the phone, and he notices that there's a number in it, so they save it. They save that phone, and they try to figure out what's going on. For some reason, though, because of the war with the Russians over how they have been retaliating against each other, they end up taking Kai's head to the Russians, and that does everything that they have going on with the Russians. However, Drew having the phone is bad because he's with Gordo and they're intimate, whatever. Gordo's in the shower, and Drew like remembers the phone or whatever, and he is going through the phone, and he texts the number because he's trying to advance their plan of figuring out who Kai was working with. And so he texts the number, Gordo's phone rings, and he sees the message that he just sent to that number, and so he realizes that Gordo was working with Kai and that they were the ones who were responsible for his father being killed. And so he obviously doesn't want to, but he kills Gordo in the shower, and they get rid of the body. So later on, we have Diana. She's arrested, and we know that this can go one of two ways. She can either flip on her family, or she can really have their back and pretend like she's not really involved. And so how Diana was caught is because she's selling drugs, and once Course Correct was outed in season 2, I think they started putting cameras on the rooftop where the lockers were being kept. And so nobody other than Effie and Diana were using the lockers, and so they were the two people who were caught on camera. And so obviously Diana was arrested, and so there's a lot of back and forth between her and Sax, her and Jenny, and then her and Davis. And so Davis is coming and he sees Sax talking to Jenny. He's not really sure why they're having a conversation, but at this point he's suspicious and he knows that Sax may be dirty. And so he's able to slip a note to Diana and tells Diana not to be really honest with Sax because he's dirty. And so at this point, Sax has a target on his back. They know for sure that he was double-crossing them because of Lauren, and then we know that he is dirty and he's not really supporting them like he's supposed to. And so what happens is Sax ends up getting Theo out of jail. Theo is Davis's brother. He realizes that Theo is not the killer because he's too short. The killer was 3 to 4 inches taller, which is what Davis is taller than his brother. He's 3 to 4 inches taller than his brother. And so he's able to pay some guy off to get Theo out of jail. Theo gets out of jail. Theo has an illness and he realizes that he's not getting any better. He lies to Davis, but then he also gets wind that Sax is dirty, and so Theo ends up basically kidnapping Sax from his car, and he ends up shooting him, I think, at a hangar. And he shoots himself because he's gonna die anyway. And so this is a devastating moment for Davis because he finally got his brother out of jail. His brother was in jail for something that he committed, or a crime that he committed, and now he's dead. And so what happened is, as a safeguard, Sax sent out emails or letters in the event of his death. So you have all of these letters going to different people. You don't know what the letters say. And so we'll talk about that in a little bit. And so at this point, we have Effie who's arrested. She was left out to dry earlier in the season. They had the cops chasing her. It was a bad drug bust until she was free to go. But then you have her actually getting arrested at this point, and it's because of Lauren's murder. And so they're leading her to the car. She's in the car. She puts down they're leading her to the car. There's a truck there. The window comes down, and she sees that Lauren is still alive. And so obviously she is going to be arrested for at least attempted murder or attempted manslaughter, whatever. And so she's in real trouble now. And she is really solid at this point. She has the mindset that she's not going to snitch. She's going to do her time. She's not going to let anybody help her, whatever. And you even have Kane sneaking in, pretending to be a lawyer, trying to help her, and she just rejects all of his help. And so she's actually really cold to Kane, considering how helpful he's been to her, and she knows that he likes her. And so this is just kind of a blow to Kane because he's willing to do everything to help her, and she's just throwing it back in his face. And so she's super annoying in that regard. In that she's not really willing to let anybody help her. So now at this point, we have the Castillo family. They're starting to ask questions about Gordo. Evelyn, she ends up asking Drew if he's seen Gordo, and he lies to her and tells her no. The thing that tips him off that something bad has happened to Gordo is that Drew is spiraling. He has this moment where he sees Everett, his former boyfriend, who's a basketball player, and Everett is on camera giving an interview, and he has his gay white boyfriend with him. And so Drew is obviously frustrated by this because he feels like Everett didn't really accept him because Everett would have never been able to be on camera with him in that way, being how involved Drew was with the drug game. And so I think he's realizing that he sacrificed a lot of stuff in terms of being able to have a healthy relationship with someone who is not involved with the drug game. And so he ends up going to some bar wherever it is, and he just breaks down and he's crying about all the things he's lost. He's crying about the guilt that he feels in killing Gordo. And there's people there who are actually recording what's happening. And so Evelyn ends up seeing this video, and she goes to Monet about the video, and she just feels like she knows that he's talking about Gordo. This is kind of her way of trying to figure out what happened to Gordo. Monet continues lying to her, and so this just is a situation that's not going to go away. Next happening is that Drew and Kane have to kill the Castillos. Drew and Kane end up going to that same place where Monet had that conversation about Lorenzo with Evelyn. And what they end up doing is locking the family into that restaurant. They fill like the pipes or whatever, the vents or whatever, with some type of toxic chemical that makes the family basically fall unconscious and then die. And so they're geared up with gas masks. They go into the building to finish off the family, and Evelyn ends up whispering Monet's name to Drew, and so this is kind of her way of, we know that this is kind of her way of letting Drew know that Monet was involved. And this becomes a topic of conversation later on, which we'll get to, but the next thing I want to talk about is Sax's letters. So we had, and the reason why I'm talking about this now is because I want to kind of, at least in this particular season, kind of stay true to how things happen, because I did want to group them a little bit differently than how it happened, but I didn't know if it would be confusing. So now we'll finally talk about the importance of Sax's letters. And so we know that one letter went to Ghost's former lover, Angela's sister's son, who was in a government role, so he's a cop or something like that. Another letter went to Two-Bit, and then a third letter went to Tommy. So we'll find out more about that in a bit. So we have Two-Bit taking advantage of this letter. We have Two-Bit making an appearance again. He comes back to blackmail Tyreek. He wants more money. He threatens to reveal Tasha's location to Tommy. Tyreek can't let this happen. So Two-Bit takes his nice car because Tyreek doesn't have money to give him. And so Tyreek is stuck with Two-Bit's car, and he ends up driving to his mom's address. And so when Tyreek gets there, he sees Yaz. Yaz is outside. So she's not in the house with Tasha and Tasha's mother. And what happens is a really, really epic scene. I replayed this scene like 20 times. It was just so brilliant to see Tommy, the way that he distinctly delivers his lines, and to see the way that Tyreek stepped up to really try to protect his family from a killer like Ghost. And so this scene was super epic. You have Tommy pulling up. Tariq sees him. You have Tommy getting out of his car. He has his silencer on. He's just deading the people who are supposed to be guarding Tasha. You don't even hear a sound. Nobody knows what's happening. That's how easy it is for Tommy to kill Tasha. He breaks into the house. At the same time that we see this, we have Tasha and her mother having a conversation about where Yaz is. The grandmother ends up leaving the house, so it's just Tasha in the house. We have her coming head to head with Tommy. They're having a conversation. We have Tommy delivering this line, something to the effect of, she's like, "You're really gonna kill me with Big Mama and Yaz right outside?" And he's like, "Oh, you're not gonna know. There's a silencer." And he points to the gun. And it's just epic. It's just really comedic the way that he's delivering his lines in that distinct Tommy style, and I really love that. And so he says that, and then you have them kind of going back and forth a little bit. And then he finally sees Tyreek. He manages to get into the house. He's kind of like hiding in the kitchen, but he's near them. And so something happens, and he finally steps out, and he just comes out from nowhere, stands in front of his mother, and is just aiming the gun squarely at Tommy, ready to kill him. And so then you have Tommy, he's caught off guard. He's surprised by Tyreek even being willing to kill him. And then he says something to the effect of like, "Oh, well, you killed your dad. It's going to be easy to kill me." And so Tyreek is like, "You know what, Tommy? I love you. You're my uncle. But I will put a bullet in you to stop you from killing my mother," is what he says. And so the way he delivered that line was so poetic. It was perfect. It was the essence of everything that Tyreek's done. He's always done everything that he's done to protect his family. And when we had him kill Ghost before, it was out of anger, it was out of pettiness, it was out of hurt. But here we have him willing to kill Ghost purely to protect his mom. So he's not this evil person that he was made out to be in OG Power. And so I replayed this, like I said, 20 times. This was epic. Then what we have is we have Tommy and we have Tommy and Tariq going back and forth, and then we have one of the cops that he shot outside. They're able to make it into the house. This distracts Tommy. Tommy has to shoot the guy, and Tariq at this point has the upper hand on Tommy, and he is literally about to shoot. He's literally about to press the trigger, and Tasha knocks him out. And so Tasha knocks him out. Tasha and Tommy have a conversation. They're like, hey, we're family. We're the only two left. We're the day ones. Why are we trying to kill each other? Blah, blah, blah. They make up. And so what happens is Tariq ends up waking up in the hospital. He finds out that Tommy and his mom are gone. He doesn't know what happened. He ends up going to Tommy's mother's house. He goes to Kate's house. He finds out that a woman with red hair gave Kate the letter that had Tasha's address on it. Then Tariq and Tommy end up confronting each other again. Tommy knows that Tariq had been to see Kate, and then they end up making up. Tariq asks for Tommy's help with the war. Tommy says no because he has a lot of other stuff going on. So to kind of get I think before this happens, so I'm pretty sure before this happened, or maybe just after, they end up staging Tommy's death because, again, Tasha had said, Tommy was the one who killed Ghost. They have Tommy popping up on the scene, and so they need to explain his absence, or they need to, get him kind of, get the target off his back. And so they have this moment where they have Tasha running in. They have Cooper Sachs following her around. They know that Tommy is following her. They have a little chase, and then Tommy ends up being run off, and he's being chased himself, and then he ends up crashing at a gas station, and his car explodes, so everyone thinks he's dead. And so that kind of sets up the stage for Power Book 4, so that he can go and do his thing in Chicago. Next, we have the Tejada family, the kids and Monet clashing. So I can't recall what exactly happened, or the order that happened, but we have Drew killing the Castillos. We have him finding out that Evelyn named Monet. We have Kane, who knows that Lorenzo killed Zeke. We don't know for sure if Kane knows that Monet was responsible. And then we also have Diana in the mix a little bit. She and Diana and Monet were not getting along well because they just always had that kind of tension between them because Diana never really could do what Monet told her to do. She was always trying to get out from under her mother, and so she was just really annoying. And so they have that fiction. They end up confronting Monet about killing Lorenzo. Diana ends up finding out something. Oh, Diana finds the file with the fingerprint when she's in Tariq's room, and so they end up confronting Monet. She admits that she was involved or whatever, I think, or maybe, I can't even recall. Man, I'm getting so confused. I know that at least the kids had a conversation about Monet, and they end up hatching a plan to kill her, and they bring Tariq into it. And so what's supposed to happen is that Diana is supposed to take Monet somewhere, and when Diana leaves her driveway, somebody's supposed to come up and shoot. That person's supposed to be Tariq. And so Diana tries to change her mind at the last minute. She tries to go back in the house with her mother. Like, she knows that, like, if she moves the car forward or whatever, the person will be able to take the shot. And so she kind of changes her mind at this point. And I can't recall what happened, but I think Tariq moves his car to get in position for the shot, and then someone comes out of nowhere and just starts spraying Diana and Monet in the car and drives off. And so we later find out that person was Tasha. So Tasha wanted revenge on Monet for everything that she's been doing as far as dragging Tariq deeper and further into the drug game. And so she did that because she wanted revenge. And then we also find out that Diana was actually the one who gave that envelope to Kate, pretending to be Monet, so that Tommy could get revenge on Tasha by killing her. And so Next, what we have happening is the famous ending scene, the warehouse scene, and so this was another scene that I would play like 20 times. This was epic. Just the way everything went down, the lines that were delivered, all of this was like extreme perfection. And so we have Tariq, he's in a tight position. We have him going to the warehouse to meet Noma. We have him being searched just as he enters the building, so he has no weapon on him. He is talking to Noma and he's trying to make himself more valuable to the organization. I think he like offers to take on more responsibility or whatever. And then at some point the other kids come out and he realizes that he has been played. So it's just Kane, Diana, and Drew at this point. And so Drew, Kane, and Diana have already gone to Noma and told her that Tariq tried to kill Monet. And so obviously this is traumatic because prior to this, Monet had inserted herself as like their boss basically. And so she has value to Noma. And so for Tariq to have tried to kill her is a big no-no. And so at this point, Tariq realizes that they have set him up to be the fall guy to kill Monet and get in trouble with Noma or whatever. And so he has one last card to play, and it's the fact that he knows about Noma's daughter. And so obviously you're thinking, okay, this is a trump card, this is what's going to save him. But then Effie comes out, and Effie's like, oh, I already told Noma about her. I already told Noma that we knew about her daughter, and her daughter was moved. And so at this point, Tariq is out of place. He has nothing else to save himself, and so he is about to be killed. And then you have the lights go out. You have Brayden running in. You have Brayden firing shots. You have Brayden giving Tariq a weapon. There's a shootout between Brayden and Tariq and the other people. You have Kane, I think, getting shot. You have Tariq and Brayden fleeing the building, heading to the car and just driving out and racing out like crazy. And then you have Brayden revealing that he only came to the warehouse because he knew that something was going down. And he knew that something was going down because Obi called him to warn him. And the reason why Obi owed Tariq a favor is because earlier on in the season, we had Tariq in some sort of bind, and he needed, I guess, like more time or something. And Obi wasn't going to give it to him, and Tariq was like, oh, well, what do you need? I can help you with it, whatever. And so Obi needs green cards, and he thought that Noma was the only one who could help him with that, but Tariq, using his connections to Tate, was able to come through and get him green cards, and so Obi owed him for that. And so Obi called Brayden, told him what was going down. Brayden comes to the rescue. He saves Tariq. They're escaping. And then you have them saying at the end that they just started a war. And so you know that season 4 is going to be epic because you have Brayden, Tariq against everybody. You don't know what's going to happen. And I'm just really excited to see this 4th season. Alright, so to wrap up this episode, I do want to point out that I was extremely disappointed that Diana was not held more responsible for everything that happened with Zeke and everything that happened after that, because we know that she again revealed who Zeke's parents were. She outed his age, and she kind of just really set everything in motion as far as everything that went wrong for the family in regards to Zeke. Overall, this season, it was full of highs and lows. The ending, very high energy. Again, I love that Tommy and Tariq scene was high energy. I love them reuniting. I love just the fact that scene kind of put Tariq in the position of being a kid again, in that he was like, Uncle Alright, so to wrap up this video, I do just want to end with some comments about Diana. In season 2, I had really hoped that in season 3, that she would be held responsible for everything that she outed as far as Zeke was concerned. That didn't really happen in season 3, so I'm kind of annoyed about that. That could potentially happen in season 4, but either way, season 3 was full of lots of low moments and also some really great high moments. The ending was super high energy. I loved it, and I'm super excited about everything that's going to be happening in season 4. I'm also excited to see the new seasons for the other Power books. So I know that Power Book 4 has already started premiering season 2 for Tommy's show, and I'm really excited about that. And I can't wait to have my recaps and reviews for the other seasons. So be on the lookout for that, and thanks for listening. Bye, guys.